The station was dying, and everyone knew it. Park Soo-min stood at the observation window and watched the warning lights flash red across the metal walls. She was the only human on Relay Station 17, a trading post at the edge of known space. For 3 years, she had worked here as a cultural advisor, helping alien species understand each other. Now, she wondered if any of them would survive the next few hours. "The reactor will fail in 6 hours," said Vex, the station commander. He was a Corvani, tall and thin with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His people were known for their calm nature, but Soo-min could see the fear in his large black eyes. "We have sent distress signals, but the nearest ship is 12 hours away." Soo-min nodded slowly. The math was simple and terrible. They would all be dead before help arrived. "How many people are on the station?" she asked. 432 souls, Vex replied, including 63 children from the education wing. Soo-min felt something cold settle in her chest. 63 children. Different species, different worlds, but still children. Still innocent lives that deserved a chance to grow up. "Show me the reactor," she said. Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Human, the reactor core is flooded with radiation. Anyone who enters will die within minutes. Our engineers have already confirmed this. There is nothing to be done. Show me anyway." The walk to the reactor section took 10 minutes. Along the way, Soo-min saw the other residents of the station. The Mallory, small furry creatures who traded in rare medicines. The Vistani, tall beings made of living crystal who sang when they spoke. The Druin, who looked like walking trees and moved with ancient patience. All of them looked at her with the same expression. Hopelessness. They had given up already. That was the difference, Soo-min thought. Her people never gave up. Even when the situation was impossible, humans kept fighting. It was both their greatest strength and their greatest flaw. The reactor room was behind 3 sets of heavy doors. Through the small window in the final door, Soo-min could see the chaos inside. Pipes had burst. Steam filled the air. And at the center of it all, the reactor core glowed an angry orange instead of its normal blue. What caused this? Soo-min asked. "A micrometeor," said the chief engineer, a Kovani named Telik. "It was too small for our shields to detect, but it struck the coolant system directly. The damage is too severe to repair from outside. Someone would need to enter the reactor chamber and manually reset the cooling pumps. How long would that take?" Telik's 4 arms moved in a gesture of uncertainty. "Perhaps 30 minutes for someone who knew the systems. But the radiation inside that room would kill any known species in less than 5 minutes, even with full protective gear." Soo-min stared through the window at the dying reactor. 30 minutes of work. 5 minutes of life. The math still did not work. But then she remembered something from her training. Something about humans that the other species often forgot. "When you say any known species," she said slowly, "are you including humans in that calculation?" Telik looked at her with confusion. "Humans are fragile creatures. You have no natural armor, no special organs for filtering toxins. Surely you would fare worse than most species, not better." Soo-min smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "You are right that we have no special defenses. But you are wrong about how we handle radiation. Humans evolved on a planet with high background radiation. We developed medicine to fight radiation sickness. And most importantly, we do not die as quickly as you think." She turned to face Vex. "I will enter the reactor chamber." The silence that followed was heavy and complete. Vex stared at her as if she had spoken in a language he did not understand. "You will die," he said finally. "Eventually," Soo-min agreed. "But not in 5 minutes. Maybe not in 30. And that might be enough time to save everyone on this station. We cannot ask this of you. You are not asking. I am offering." Soo-min began walking toward the equipment lockers where the protective suits were stored. "Get me the repair instructions. I will memorize them on the way." The suit was designed for a Corvani body, but Suman made it work. It hung loose in some places and tight in others, but the seals were good and the air supply was full. She stood before the final door and looked back at the small crowd that had gathered. Vex was there, along with Talik and a dozen others. They watched her with wide eyes and trembling bodies. None of them could understand why she was doing this. To them, it looked like madness. "Human," Vex said, his voice rough with emotion. "I do not know how to thank you. Thank me after the reactor is fixed," Suman said. "And take care of those children. That is all the thanks I need." She pressed the button to open the door. Hot air and radiation washed over her like a wave. Her skin immediately began to tingle, and she knew the damage had already started. But she stepped forward anyway, into the orange glow and the steam and the death that waited for her. The door closed behind her, and Park Soo-min began to work. She had 30 minutes of tasks to complete. Her body would give her perhaps 20 minutes of functional time. That meant she had to be faster than anyone thought possible. She had to be more than human. But that was the thing about humans, she thought as she ran toward the first control panel. They were always more than anyone thought possible. The heat inside the reactor chamber was beyond anything Suman had ever experienced. Each breath burned her lungs. Sweat poured down her face and collected inside her helmet, blurring her vision. But she kept moving. The first control panel was 20 meters from the door. She reached it in 15 seconds and began entering the commands that Talik had given her. Her fingers moved fast, faster than she thought possible. The panel beeped and flashed green. One task done. 11 more to go. Outside the chamber, the crowd watched through the small window. They could barely see Suman through the steam and the orange glow, but they could see her moving, working, fighting. "How is this possible?" whispered a young Vistani named Chelis. Her crystal body hummed with confusion. The radiation should have killed her already. "Humans are different," Vex replied quietly. "I have heard stories, but I never believed them until now." "What stories?" Vex did not answer immediately. He watched the human shape move through the deadly chamber, climbing over broken pipes and crawling under fallen beams. Finally, he spoke. "They say humans come from a death world, a planet where everything tries to kill them. The weather, the animals, the plants. Even the water can kill them if they drink too much. They evolved to survive constant danger. There, bodies can take damage that would kill other species instantly. They can push past pain and exhaustion and fear. They do not stop fighting until their hearts stop beating." Chelis made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "That sounds like a nightmare." "It is," Vex agreed. And it made them into something incredible. Inside the chamber, Suman finished the second task and ran toward the third. Her vision was getting worse. The edges of her sight were going dark, and colors were starting to blur together. Radiation was damaging her eyes. She did not have much time left. But she kept a timer running in her head. 7 minutes gone. 23 minutes of work remaining. She had to be faster. The third panel was high on the wall, meant for Corvani workers with their long arms. Suman climbed a broken pipe to reach it, her muscles screaming in protest. The suit had torn somewhere. She could feel it. Cool air was leaking out and radiation was leaking in. It did not matter. Nothing mattered except the next task. She finished the third panel, then the fourth, then the fifth. 10 minutes gone. 80 minutes of work remaining. Her hands were shaking now. Her legs felt weak. Something was wrong inside her body. She could feel it. The radiation was killing her cells one by one, shutting down systems that she needed to survive. But humans were stubborn creatures. They did not die easily. "Keep going," she whispered to herself. Her voice sounded strange in the helmet, thin and rough. "Keep going for the children. Keep going for everyone." The sixth panel was on the floor, partially buried under a piece of fallen equipment. Suman had to dig it out with her bare hands. The gloves of her suit were too thick for delicate work, so she removed them. The metal burned her fingers, and the radiation began to eat at her exposed skin immediately. But she got the panel free and completed the 6th task. Outside, a new person had joined the crowd. Her name was Mira, and she was a teacher from the education wing. She had brought 3 of her students with her, young ones of different species who wanted to see the human who was saving their lives. "Is she going to die?" asked one of the students. A small Mallory named Pip. Myra did not know how to answer. She looked at Vex, but the station commander only shook his head sadly. "She is very brave," Myra said finally. It was not an answer, but it was the truth. Inside, Suman finished the 7th task, then the 8th. Her legs gave out after the 9th, and she had to crawl to the 10th panel. Her breath was coming in short gasps now. Her heart was beating too fast, then too slow, then too fast again. Her body was failing, but there were still 3 tasks left. "Come on," she said through clenched teeth. "You can do this. You have to do this." She dragged herself across the floor, leaving a trail of blood from her damaged hands. The 10th panel was near the reactor core itself, and the radiation there was strongest. She could feel it like a physical pressure, pushing against her skin, trying to force her back. She pushed forward instead. The 10th task took 3 minutes because her fingers would not work properly anymore. The 11th took 4. By the time she reached the final panel, 16 minutes had passed. She had 4 minutes to complete the last task and get out. But the final panel was behind the reactor core, in a small maintenance space that required climbing through a narrow gap. Suman looked at the gap and knew that she was too weak to climb through it. Her arms had no strength left. Her legs were useless. She could barely see, barely think, barely breathe. She was going to fail. 432 people were going to die because she could not complete one final task. No. Park. Suman refused to accept that. She had not crawled through fire and radiation and pain just to give up at the end. She was human. Her people had climbed mountains and crossed oceans and walked on the moon. They had faced impossible odds throughout their history and won through stubborn refusal to quit. She pulled herself into the gap. Her torn suit caught on a piece of metal and ripped further. She felt sharp pain as something cut her side. She ignored it and kept pulling. The final panel was small and simple. Just 3 buttons in the right order. She could barely see them, but she had memorized their positions. Left button, center button, right button. A soft chime sounded. The panel flashed green. The reactor core began to hum differently. The angry orange glow started to fade, replaced slowly by the calm blue of a healthy reactor. Suman had done it. She had saved them all. Now she just had to get out before her body gave up completely. She began to crawl back toward the door. The crowd watched through the window as the reactor returned to normal. The orange glow faded. The steam began to clear. And somewhere in that clearing mist, they could see a small human shape crawling across the floor. "She did it," Telek whispered. "She actually did it." "Open the doors," Vex commanded. "Get the medical team ready. Move." People scattered to obey. The 3 heavy doors began their opening sequence, each one requiring a safety check before it would unlock. Vex watched the process with growing fear. The human had stopped moving. "Faster," he said. "Please, faster." The first door opened. Then the second. As the 3rd door slid aside, a wave of heat rolled out, and the crowd stepped back automatically. All except Vex. He ran forward into the chamber, toward the small body that lay still on the floor. Suman was alive, but barely. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow and uneven. Her exposed skin was red and blistered, and blood seeped from cuts on her hands and side. Vex picked her up as gently as he could with his 4 arms and carried her out of the chamber. The medical team met them in the hallway. They were led by Dr. Kren, an older Mallory, whose small hands moved with amazing speed. He took one look at Suman and began giving orders. Radiation treatment immediately. We need the full protocol. Someone contact the human medical database. We need to know the correct treatments for their biology. Will she live? Vex asked. Dr. Kren hesitated. I do not know. I have never treated a human before. None of us have. Her injuries are severe, and humans are not well documented in our medical systems. They rushed Suman to the medical bay while Vex followed close behind. The news of what had happened was spreading through the station now. People were leaving their quarters and gathering in the hallways, talking in hushed voices about the human who had saved them all. In the education wing, Mira gathered her students and explained what had happened. The children listened with wide eyes. Why did she do it? Asked Pip the Mallory. She could have just stayed safe. Mira thought about the question. Some beings are born to protect others, she said finally. It is in their nature, like how you can smell things that other species cannot smell, or how cellos can sing at frequencies we cannot hear. Humans are protectors. It is what they do, even for people they do not know. Especially for people they do not know. In the medical bay, Dr. Kren and his team worked through the night. They pumped medicines into Suman's body and wrapped her wounds in special bandages. They put her in a tank of healing liquid that was normally used for Korani patients. It was not perfect for human biology, but it was better than nothing. Vex stayed by her side the entire time. He had been a station commander for 15 years, and in that time, he had seen many things. Births and deaths, celebrations and tragedies, acts of kindness and acts of cruelty. But he had never seen anything like what this human had done. Why did you do it? He asked quietly, even though she could not hear him. You had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You did not know any of us. We were strangers. Why would you die for strangers? He did not expect an answer, but he got one anyway. Suman's eyes opened slowly. They were bloodshot and unfocused, but they found his face after a moment. Because you needed help, she whispered. Her voice was rough and weak. That is enough. You almost died. Humans are good at almost dying. A tiny smile touched her cracked lips. We are also good at not quite dying. Give me a few days. Dr. Kren rushed over when he realized his patient was awake. He ran several scans and made worried sounds. You should not be conscious, he said. The damage to your system is extensive. You need to rest. I will rest when the children are safe, Suman said. Are the children safe? Yes, everyone is safe because of you. Suman closed her eyes again. The tiny smile stayed on her face. Good, that is good. She slept for the next 2 days. During that time, the rescue ship arrived and engineers came aboard to make permanent repairs to the reactor. They were amazed at the work Suman had done. Despite the radiation and the damage and the failing suit, she had completed every task perfectly. Not a single mistake. This is the work of a trained professional, said the lead engineer, a Druid named Ancient Oak. Who did this? A human, Vex replied. A cultural advisor named Park Suman. She had no engineering training at all. Ancient Oak was silent for a long moment. His wooden body creaked as he processed this information. Then how did she know what to do? We gave her the instructions once. She memorized them in 10 minutes and performed them perfectly under conditions that should have killed her. That is just what humans do. The rescue ship brought news from the wider galaxy. Stories of what had happened on Relay Station 17 spread fast. Within a week, Park Suman had become famous among species who had never heard of her before. News stations wanted interviews. Officials wanted to give her awards. Everyone wanted to meet the human who had walked through death to save 400 strangers, but Suman refused all of it. She was still in the medical bay, slowly healing from her injuries. When reporters called, she told them to talk to the real heroes instead. The teachers who kept the children calm, she said. The engineers who tried everything before I went in. the station commander who organized the evacuation plans. They are the heroes. I just did one job. No one believed her, of course. But that humility only made them admire her more. 3 weeks after the reactor incident, Suman was finally well enough to leave the medical bay. Her skin had healed, though some scars would stay forever. Her eyes had recovered, though they were more sensitive to light than before. Her hands still ached when the air was cold. But she was alive, and that was more than anyone had expected. The first thing she did was visit the education wing, 63. Children of various species were waiting for her. They had made decorations and prepared songs. Pip the Mallory had organized the whole thing, running around on his small legs and giving orders to creatures 3 times his size. When Suman walked through the door, every child fell silent. They stared at her with expressions of wonder and fear and gratitude all mixed together. Then Pip stepped forward, holding a piece of paper that looked very small in his furry paws. "We made you something," he said. His voice was shaking. "To say thank you." He handed her the paper. It was a drawing done in many colors by many different hands. It showed a human figure walking into an orange cloud, with smaller figures watching from outside. Above the drawing, in crooked letters, were the words, "Our hero." Suman felt tears come to her eyes. She knelt down so she was at Pip's level and looked at the drawing carefully. "This is beautiful," she said. "This is the most beautiful gift I have ever received." "Do you really think so?" Pip asked. "I really do." She looked up at all the children watching her. "You are all very talented artists. I will keep this forever." The children cheered. They surrounded her with hugs and questions and stories about what they had been doing during the 3 weeks she was healing. Suman listened to all of them, smiling and nodding and asking her own questions. She learned that Cheles the Vistani had started a singing group. She learned that a young Druin named Small Branch had begun studying medicine because of what Dr. Kren had done. She learned that many of the children now wanted to meet more humans. "Are all humans like you?" asked a Gorvani child named Teris. Suman thought about the question. "No," she said honestly. "Humans are all different, just like every species. Some are brave and some are afraid. Some are kind and some are cruel. But most humans, I think, would do what I did. When they see someone in danger, especially children, something inside them refuses to stand by and watch. Why is that? Because we remember being children ourselves. We remember being small and scared and needing someone bigger to protect us. Every human adult was once a human child. We never forget what that felt like." The visit lasted 2 hours. When Suman finally left the education wing, Myra walked with her. "You gave them hope," the teacher said. "Not just by saving their lives, but by talking to them today. By treating them as important." "They are important," Suman replied. "Every child is important. That is why I did what I did." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. The station was different now, Suman noticed. The emergency lights had been replaced with normal ones. The damaged sections had been repaired. But more than that, the atmosphere had changed. People smiled when they saw each other. They stopped to talk in the hallways. The fear that had gripped the station during the crisis had been replaced by something warmer. "The station feels different," Suman said. Myra nodded. "Shared danger creates shared bonds. We all almost died together. Now we are connected in ways we were not before. And you are at the center of that connection. I am not comfortable being at the center of anything. That is too bad." Myra smiled gently. "Because everyone wants to thank you. The merchants want to give you free goods. The engineers want to name a section of the station after you. The children want you to visit every day. You have become the heart of this community." Suman sighed. She had never wanted fame or attention. She had only wanted to help. But she was beginning to understand that she could not control how others felt about what she had done. "I am just a person," she said. I got lucky. The radiation could have killed me in the first minute. The reactor could have failed before I finished. 100 things could have gone wrong. But they did not. And you made choices that gave luck a chance to happen. That is what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. They reached Suman's quarters, a small room that felt like home after 3 years. Myra stopped at the door. "The Galactic Council has requested your presence," she said. "They want to honor you formally. Vex has been trying to find the right time to tell you." "The Galactic Council?" Suman blinked. "That seems excessive. You saved 400 lives, including representatives of 6 different species. Several of those species are now demanding that humanity receive increased status in galactic affairs. They say that a species capable of producing someone like you deserves more respect and influence." Suman did not know how to respond to that. She had never thought about politics or galactic influence. She had just been doing her job, living her life, and trying to help when she could. "I need to think about this," she said finally. "Take your time. The council can wait. You have earned the right to rest." Myra left, and Suman entered her quarters. She sat on her bed and looked at the drawing from the children. 63 small figures, watching one large figure walk into danger. What did it mean to represent all of humanity? Could one person really change how the galaxy saw an entire species? She did not know, but she was starting to think she might find out. The Galactic Council met on a space station at the center of known space. It was a massive structure, home to representatives from over 200 species. Decisions made here affected trillions of lives across thousands of worlds. Suman had never expected to see it with her own eyes. She stood in the main chamber, wearing her best clothes and trying not to feel small. The chamber was designed to be impressive, with high ceilings and floating platforms where different species could observe the proceedings. Thousands of eyes watched her from every direction. Vex stood beside her, wearing his formal uniform as station commander. He had insisted on accompanying her, saying that her story was his story too. She was grateful for his presence. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," the High Speaker began. The High Speaker was a being of pure energy, ancient and powerful. "We are gathered to honor Park Suman of Earth, who saved 432 lives at Relay Station 17 through extraordinary courage and sacrifice." The chamber was silent as the High Speaker described what had happened. The broken reactor, the deadly radiation, the human who walked into death because she could not stand by and watch children die. When the High Speaker finished, a murmur ran through the chamber. Then a representative from the Druin spoke. "I am Ancient Forest, elder of my people. I have lived for 8,000 years and witnessed much, but I have never seen a being act as this human did. It is rare for someone to risk their life for their own kind. It is almost unknown for someone to risk everything for complete strangers of different species. This human has shown us something about her people that we did not understand before." Another representative spoke, this one a Vestani whose crystal body shone with rainbow light. "My cousin Chelis was on that station. She was one of the children who would have died. She sings now about the human who walked through fire to save her. This is not just a political matter. This is personal. Humanity has earned the eternal friendship of the Vestani people." One by one, representatives stood to speak. A Malori merchant whose family traded on the station. A Kovani scientist who had been visiting when the reactor failed. Each one had a connection to someone Suman had saved. Each one spoke of gratitude and respect and a new understanding of humanity. Finally, it was time for Suman to speak. She walked to the central platform, her heart beating fast. She had prepared a speech, but looking at all those watching eyes, she decided to set it aside and speak from her heart instead. When I entered that reactor chamber, I was not thinking about politics or species relations or my place in history. I was thinking about children. 63 children who deserve to grow up and have adventures and make mistakes and learn from them. I was thinking about parents who would never see their sons and daughters again if I failed. I was thinking about teachers and engineers and shopkeepers who had families waiting for them somewhere in the galaxy. She paused to gather her thoughts. Humans are not special. We are not stronger or smarter or better than other species. We come from a difficult world, yes. Our history is full of violence and tragedy. But it is also full of moments when ordinary people did extraordinary things. When they stood up for strangers. When they ran toward danger instead of away from it. When they decided that some things were more important than their own survival. I did what I did because that is what humans do. Not all of us. Not always. But enough of us, often enough, that it has become part of who we are. We protect. We fight for others. We refuse to give up hope even when the math says we should. I am honored by your recognition. But I want you to know that there are billions of humans who would have done the same thing in my place. I am not unique. I am just one example of what my people can be when we choose to be our best selves. The chamber was silent when she finished. Then, slowly, the sound of approval began. It started with the Vistani, whose crystalline bodies rang with beautiful tones. It spread to the Kovani, who clicked their mandibles in rhythm. The Malori added their high-pitched voices. The Druin hummed low and steady like ancient trees in a storm. The sound built and built until it filled the entire chamber. A symphony of gratitude and respect and welcome. When the ceremony ended, Suman was officially recognized as a hero of the Galactic Council. The first human ever to receive that honor. But more importantly, the Council voted to upgrade humanity's status from provisional member to full member, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. Vex found her afterwards, in a quiet corner away from the crowds of beings who wanted to meet her. "You changed everything," he said, "for your people and for mine. The galaxy will never see humans the same way again." Suman looked out a window at the stars. So many worlds. So many species. So many stories waiting to happen. "I hope they see us clearly," she said. "The good and the bad. Humans are capable of terrible things. We have hurt each other and our world in ways that still cause pain. But we are also capable of this. Of choosing to help. Of running toward the fire instead of away from it. That is all any species can hope for," Vex replied. "To be seen truly. To be judged by our best moments as well as our worst." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere on Relay Station 17, 63 children were sleeping peacefully. Somewhere on Earth, billions of humans were living their ordinary lives, unaware that one of them had changed the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the story of Park Suman was being told and retold, inspiring others to be brave. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.